An African child is seen in a cage in the Congo in 1955. The image reflects colonial practices and displays situations that are widely condemned today. Records of this kind serve as a reminder of the inequalities and inhumane treatment suffered by many communities in the colonial period. In the 1940s, the image shows people resting in the London Underground during a period of air raids. The underground space was used as a temporary refuge to ensure greater safety. The record presents families, adults, and children settled on platforms and benches. In 1939, the image shows school-age children in England wearing protective masks. The use of the equipment was part of preventive measures adopted by the government. The record presents groups of students in open areas accompanied by adults. Recorded in 1922, the image shows Harry Gardner, known as the Human Fly, climbing the McAlpin Hotel in New York City. The scene captures the moment when he is at the height of the 24th floor. Glenn Dungy, an 11-year-old bakery worker, waits near the railroad tracks in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, on April 10, 1917. The scene portrays child labor that was common in the early 20th century, before stricter labor protection laws. A crowd of people at an employment office counter during the 1930s. It shows lines and crowds seeking job opportunities. It records aspects of the economic and social context of the time. It preserves details of clothing and the organization of public services of the period. American engineers Charles Ginsberg, Charles Anderson, and Ray Dolby demonstrate their invention, the first video cassette recorder, in 1956. The demonstration took place in a technical setting with the equipment displayed and operating. An unemployed worker displays a tattoo related to Social Security during the period of the Great Depression. The scene shows a simple setting, focusing on the central figure and the details of the record. 4 riders in formal hunting attire are mounted in front of a house, accompanied by a pack of hounds on the outskirts of Washington District of Columbia in 1918. The scene represents a traditional hunting practice common at the time among organized groups. Brigitte Bardot during the 1950s. The image portrays a moment in her career at the beginning of her artistic path. The record was made at a time when she was starting to gain recognition in cinema and fashion. During the 1950s, the actress took part in productions that helped project her image internationally. A rare photo, later colorized, shows an important moment in a military operation carried out in 1944. The record presents vessels, uniforms, and equipment used by the forces involved. The scene took place during a decisive event of the Second World War. Gertrude Dewar, known as Mademoiselle Omega, performs on the tightrope in Brockton, Massachusetts in 1908. The scene shows the performance equipment set up in an open area. Walter Zapashny interacts with a lion in the Soviet Union during the 1960s. Known as an animal trainer and circus performer, Zapashny appeared in shows that involved big cats. Nurses are outdoors between buildings at a hospital in France in 1916. The scene shows traditional uniforms of the profession and structures typical of the time. The moment records part of the daily work carried out in health facilities. Photograph of the ship. Titanic leaving port for the first time in 1912. It shows the vessel seen from the side with details of its structure. It records the beginning of its maiden voyage. It preserves engineering and naval design characteristics of the early 20th century. Passengers of the New York City subway during its opening in October 1904. The opening marked the start of a system that would become one of the largest and busiest in the world. The event represented a significant advance in the city's urban transportation. Traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge shortly after its opening in 1937. It shows vehicles moving across the newly opened structure. It records the initial movement on one of the most well-known architectural landmarks in the United States. The image shows the moment when the first electronic mail message in the world was sent. The feat marked the beginning of a new era in digital communication. The record presents the equipment used, composed of computers and terminals of the time. Ruins of the ancient Roman temple of Bacchus in Baalbek, Lebanon, recorded between the 1870s and 1880s. The scene shows columns and architectural structures preserved in part. The Empress of the Russian Empire, Alexandra Feodorovna, with her daughters in 1910. The record was made during a moment of family time. The image presents details of attire and the style characteristic of the Russian court in the early 20th century. Grace Kelly, Princess of Monaco, and her husband Rainier III, Prince of Monaco, drew the attention of locals while shopping in Lausanne, Switzerland, in 1956. The scene shows busy streets and shop windows in the background. Yuri Gagarin appears with his wife Valentina and daughter Elena in Moscow, the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, Soviet Union, in 1964. The cosmonaut was the first human to travel into space in 1961. The photograph shows a family moment a few years after his historic space mission. Recorded in 1969, the image shows Salvador Dali walking with an anteater on a street in Paris. The moment reflects the eccentric style and unusual choices of the artist. The record presents Dali holding the animal by the lead while interacting with people around him. Cabaret de l'Enfer in Paris, France. The place was a tourist and entertainment spot known for its themed decor. The record presents details of the entrance that used striking scenic elements. The cabaret was part of a cultural scene that brought together music, theater, and creative settings. The image shows Maud Odell, one of the first women to work as a taxi driver in New York City. The record presents the vehicle she used and part of the urban setting of the time. Female presence in this sector was uncommon in the early 20th century. The front page of the Los Angeles Mirror News on the day Alaska achieved statehood in 1958. The headline highlighted Alaska's entry as the 49th state of the United States. The original Neue Elbbrücke. bridge in Hamburg, Germany, was in use from 1887 to 1959. It shows two Gothic-style towers that were part of its structure. It records changes made during the bridge's expansion in 1959, when the towers were removed. The Ford Model A was one of the brand's most popular models, produced between 1927 and 1931. Steam locomotives were still widely used for the transportation of freight and passengers. A family beside its Ford Model T in 1918, the vehicle parked with everyone posing for the photograph. It reflects the popularization of the automobile in the early 20th century. It preserves design and engineering details characteristic of the time. A strong blizzard at the intersection of Fifth Avenue and 23rd Street in Manhattan. The setting presents streets covered with snow and few people moving through the area. The building stands out for its triangular shape and innovative style for the time. Recorded in 1899, the image shows workers specialized in the manual manufacture of chains. The scene presents tools, metal pieces, and the typical production environment of the time. Swords being loaded for delivery in 1946. It shows workers organizing the items in a transport vehicle. It records part of a logistical distribution process. It preserves details of packaging, handling, and transportation methods of the time. A swimsuit fashion show in California in 1945. The scene shows participants displaying different styles by the seaside or in an outdoor area. The moment records fashion and leisure trends of the period. Horse race in La Mode in the 1910s. The scene shows mounted competitors and spectators watching the event. The moment records a sporting and social practice common at the time. Sophia Loren plays billiards at an American military base in Italy in 1954. The scene shows the actress by a game table with onlookers present. The image records a recreational interaction during a visit to military facilities. This photo shows a beach filled with visitors during the 1950s. The record was made on a very busy day, with thousands of people enjoying the coast. The scene presents beach umbrellas, bathing suits of the time, and the typical summer atmosphere. Hamburgers stand in Harlingen, Texas, with prices such as a hamburger for 5 cents, a chili plate for 10 cents, and breakfast for 25 cents. It shows signs advertising the options and highlighting the sale of soda. A group of Italian immigrants in the waiting room at the railroad station on Ellis Island in 1905. It shows people seated and standing with suitcases and belongings. It records part of the process of travel and the arrival of new residents in the country. A woman kisses a British soldier returning home after the end of a major conflict in the mid-20th century. It shows a warm reception in a public area. It records a reunion scene marked by emotion and celebration. A French woman walks through the streets of Paris, France, carrying a baguette and 6 bottles of drink in 1945. The scene shows buildings typical of the city and urban movement in the background. Two Maikos talk in the street in Kyoto, Japan, in 1946. The scene shows traditional attire and elaborate hairstyles typical of Japanese culture. The moment records part of daily life and social interactions of the time. Classic and modern outfits appeared during the Sanja Festival in Asakusa, Tokyo, Japan, in 1955. The event is one of the city's most traditional, held in honor of the founders of the Sensoji Temple. Everyday scene in Old Japan, recorded in 1904 by photographer Julian Cochrane. The image comes from a stereograph, a format popular at the time for creating a three-dimensional effect. Such photographs helped show aspects of daily life and Japanese culture to foreign audiences. A Bedouin woman is with her child in Saudi Arabia in 1948. The scene shows traditional clothing and a setting typical of the region. The moment records aspects of daily life and local culture. The image preserves historical details that help in understanding life on the Arabian Peninsula in the 20th century. Girl dances on a Marmon car in Southern California in 1926. The Marmon model was produced by an American manufacturer known for luxury vehicles in the early 20th century. The scene reflects the festive mood and lifestyle typical of the 1920s. A prototype resembling a Segway appears in a scene from the 1923 film Our Hospitality, starring Buster Keaton. The device, used as a comedic element in the production, visually recalls modern personal transport vehicles. A group of women play cards while cooling off in a community pool in the 1920s. The scene combines social leisure and water fun typical of the period. Public pools were popular gathering places, especially on hot days. A soldier gets his shoes shined on 125th Street in New York City in 1946. The scene shows the typical movement of a commercial thoroughfare, with people passing by and shops in the background. Chevy Vega automobiles are transported by the Southern Pacific Railroad Company in special Vert APAC railcars around the 1970s. These cars were designed to carry the vehicles in a vertical position, optimizing space and reducing transportation costs. A group of children with tricycles in the Brooklyn borough during the 1930s. The scene portrays a leisure moment in an urban area with friends gathered to play. The record was made in a period marked by social and urban changes in the United States. Al Pacino as a baby in a family photograph from 1940. It shows the actor in the arms of an adult, surrounded by relatives. It records a childhood moment of a future well-known figure in cinema. Al Pacino in 1961. The record was made before he became known as a film actor. At the time, he was involved in an incident that received attention in local newspapers. The setting and clothing style reflect the historical period portrayed. Crew members of a short Sunderland eat a meal during a patrol in the North Atlantic in 1940. The aircraft was used mainly for maritime reconnaissance and long-range patrol missions. Two women from the island of Kafta Kafa in New Guinea around 1905. The record shows clothing and adornments typical of the local community. Images of this kind preserve cultural elements and traditions of island peoples in the region. Visitors are on the forward deck of His Majesty's ship New Zealand during its stop in Vancouver in 1913. The ship was part of a demonstration and naval diplomacy voyage before the First World War. This photo shows Jim Carrey during the Christmas season in 1967. The image portrays a moment from his childhood long before he became known worldwide as an actor and comedian. The record was made on a festive date when families usually gather to celebrate. Marilyn Monroe dances at a public event in the 20th century. The scene shows people around watching the performance. The moment records one of the actress's artistic appearances at social occasions. The image preserves fashion and style details characteristic of the time. Scene from the film Avenue of Hope, 1953, produced in Italy and directed by Dino Risi. The image shows characters in an urban setting typical of the period. The moment is part of the cinematic narrative created by the director. Street scene in the city of Vicksburg, Mississippi, in 1936. It shows commercial buildings, signs, and pedestrian movement. It records aspects of urban daily life in the southern United States. It preserves architectural details and visual elements characteristic of the 1930s. King's Cross Station in London, on July 20, 1899. The scene shows the movement of people and trains at the site. The moment records urban transportation routines at the end of the 19th century. A woman rides a new tricycle in 1882, photographed by Chas. W. Oldreive. The scene shows the three-wheeled vehicle outdoors. The image preserves clothing and design details characteristic of the late 19th century. Recorded in the 1890s, the image shows a cart pulled by an ostrich. The use of unusual animals for transport drew attention and was considered a curiosity of the time. The record presents details of the cart, the animal, and the drivers. A demonstration held in 1929 presented a domestic novelty, the portable manual dishwasher. The event marked the introduction of equipment designed to make kitchen work easier. At the time, the product drew attention because it did not require a fixed installation and could be used in different places. The kokoshnik is a traditional head adornment associated with women's clothing in several regions of Russia. The record shows details of the piece, such as its semicircular shape and characteristic decorations. Winner of a beauty pageant held in New York City in 1922. The event brought together participants to celebrate fashion, style, and stage presence. The record shows the winner wearing outfits typical of the time, with details characteristic of the 1920s. In 1922, the image shows a pedal-powered car used as a children's toy. The vehicle presents a design inspired by real automobiles of the time, but adapted for children. The structure was made mainly of metal, with sturdy wheels and simple seats. A river located in Oklahoma around the 1890s. It shows banks with vegetation and possible areas of community use. It records aspects of the natural landscape of the territory at the time. It preserves geographic and environmental details characteristic of the late 19th century. Photo shows a young dog, recorded in 1889. The image was captured in a period when photography was still made with long exposure equipment. The record preserves details of the animal's coat and posture, offering a look at how animal portraits were made in the late 19th century. Two women wearing shorts and a whistle. It shows casual attire and accessories typical of outdoor activities. It records aspects of relaxed fashion and recreation. It preserves visual details characteristic of the 20th century. A family says a prayer of thanks before a meal. It shows people gathered at the table with food served. It records a traditional custom present in many homes. It preserves cultural and visual details characteristic of family gatherings. Graduation ceremony in the late 1890s. The scene shows graduates and guests gathered in formal attire. The moment records a traditional educational celebration of the time. Portrait of Martha Perkins in 1901. It shows formal clothing and a hairstyle characteristic of the early 20th century. It records aspects of fashion and personal presentation of the time. It preserves cultural and visual details of the period. A youth with a chicken around the 1900s. The scene shows clothing typical of the early 20th century and a simple setting. The moment records aspects of rural daily life of the time. A family is gathered at a wooden table, enjoying a meal on a farm in 1940. The setting reflects rural daily life of the time, with clothing and objects typical of the early 20th century. The wife of a tenant farmer in Pitt County, North Carolina, stands on the porch of her house in 1949. The scene was recorded on a clear day, showing the simple construction and elements typical of rural homes. A messenger in Birmingham, Alabama, in 1914. The job consisted of delivering letters, documents, and small parcels around the city. Records like this show aspects of urban work in the early 20th century. A person sits indoors in 1992. The scene shows furniture, framed pictures on the wall, and personal items spread around the space. The moment was recorded in black and white, with details characteristic of a residence or a hotel room. The image preserves visual elements typical of the early 1990s. A deer hunter in Huntingdon County, pictured in 1937, nicknamed the real-life Elmer Fudd in reference to the cartoon character. The clothing and equipment reflect the hunting style of the time. Records like this show cultural and regional aspects of outdoor activities in the early 20th century. In 1938, Seabiscuit became known as the little horse that could for exceeding expectations in American horse racing. The horse became a symbol of perseverance by winning important races against opponents considered stronger. 3 million men took part in the Civilian Conservation Corps' Work Relief Program in the United States. In the photograph, around 1940, an arc welder works in the American Indian Division of the Civilian Conservation Corps. Egyptian women walking along a busy street in Cairo, Egypt, during the 1950s. The scene portrays a moment of urban daily life with people moving and commercial activities in the background. The record was made during a time of cultural changes and modernization in the country. Before flat-screen televisions, Punch and Judy shows were a popular form of entertainment in London around 1910. These puppet shows were part of British culture and attracted both children and adults. Three boys play with hoops on a street in the United Kingdom in 1948. The activity was a simple and common form of children's leisure in the post-Second World War period. Scenes like this show children's creativity at a time with less access to mass-produced toys. Fidel Castro donates blood for victims of the earthquake that occurred in Peru in 1962. The gesture was part of a humanitarian effort organized to help those affected by the disaster. Records of this moment show international mobilization in response to the tragedy. Michelangelo's statue David was completely surrounded by a brick structure to prevent damage during the Second World War. This measure was intended to protect the work against possible impacts caused by explosions. The care demonstrates the importance given to preserving artistic heritage in times of conflict. A boy reacts as he looks at a television screen for the first time. The spread of television transformed entertainment and information habits around the world. Recorded around the 1940s, the image shows a boy watching a store window with a television on. Residents of Hornsey in London faced material shortages due to the restrictions of 1943. To help address this situation, the government started a campaign encouraging the reuse of household waste. An inflatable tank used in a deception plan to confuse opposing forces about Allied intentions before an important operation in England in 1945. The scene shows the equipment positioned in an open area. Recorded in the early 20th century, the moment shows the man known for having the longest beard ever documented. The feat was recognized as a curious landmark in the category of personal records. The record presents the impressive length of the beard and the style characteristic of the time. Recorded in 1930, the image shows people in costumes during the celebration of Halloween. The record presents handmade costumes and masks typical of the festivities of the time. The celebrations included community gatherings, games, and themed activities. Barnum and Bailey, circus performers in New York City. The record presents members of the cast posing with characteristic costumes and props. The shows brought together music, acrobatics, and choreographed numbers for the audience.